I don't really remember, but somehow.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance being led by Riley Flint.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the second regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Village Ballston Spa here on January 27th, 2025. We have two public hearings, and I will read the notice of the first one, and by that time it will be 7:01 p.m. Village of Ballston Spa notice of public hearing to consider adoption of local law. Notice is hereby given pursuant to Section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law of the State of New York that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa on January 27, 2025 at 7:01 p.m. at the Village Office, 66 Front Street, Ballston Spa, New York, for the purpose of considering the adoption of local law number 1 of 2025. If adopted, local law number 1 of 2025 will replace and repeal and replace Section 45-9 Board of Trustees Annual Organizational Meeting to the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa. Public are permitted to attend and provide comments at the above location. Written comments on local law number 1 of 2025 can be submitted to the village clerk up and through the time of the public hearing. A copy of proposed local law number 1 of 2025 can be obtained at the village offices and on the village's website. For those on Zoom, this would be a time to raise your hand if you would like to give a public comment. Anybody in the room as well, if you'd like to raise your hand, please. I'm shocked it's Liz.
Zoom first or me?
You first.
Liz Farmhouse 89 High. This proposed law came about largely because of the great amount of confusion created by the mayor and, I believe by the mayor, by scheduling a meeting on January 2nd that was originally classified and noticed as an official meeting, the official meeting, until somebody realized that that was against our code, because the code said that we should have an official meeting on Monday afterwards, on the 6th. So, then that meeting became a special meeting, so it created a great deal of confusion for everybody as to when's the organizational, is it two organizationals at one, which was a special, et cetera, et cetera. So I do agree that this section of the code needs to change, but I don't believe that what's written here actually accomplishes your goal, because your goal, as stated earlier, was to have that meeting as soon after the start of the official year, so that folks could get to work on their duties and not wait 6 days to the following Monday. But in this law, you say can be held anytime after the beginning of the official year, before the second Monday of the official year. You're not extending it 2 weeks, which, why are you doing that if the goal was to make it as close to the start of the official year, January 1? And you say the date, time, and decision. What I think you should really just do, this law is a little too complicated. Why don't you just do what you said you wanted? Schedule it for the first business day after the start of the official year. Done. And put in the time, potentially 7, and the date. Don't put in the location, because that could change. You're gonna have to notice the meeting anyways. So, why make it more complicated than it needs to be? Just say when you wanna have the meeting, which is right close to the beginning of the official year, which would be the day after. And of course, unless it's a weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? We have one person on Zoom, Keith.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street. I want to address the proposed new law based on what we've been told. We were first informed by Frank and noticed by the village clerk in the paper and online that the annual organizational meeting would be on January 2nd. After Frank was told that couldn't happen, the agenda was kept the same for January 2nd, but the meeting name was changed to special meeting, and we were told it was not an organizational meeting. Trustee Baskin, Trustee Raymond complained and were silenced by the mayor, who ignored the village rules of procedure, interrupted the other trustees mid-sentence, improperly adjourned the meeting, turned off the Zoom audio so no one could hear their complaints. And after the meeting was resumed, we were told that nothing was being done out of the ordinary, everything was above board, and the only reason for the appointments, including Bernadette as deputy mayor, occurring on the second, was to ensure that 52 appointments could participate in a training. However, on January 6th, at our organizational meeting, you passed a motion to allow those appointees to actually enroll in the training, rendering the early appointments moot. At the January 6th meeting, village the village attorney, Carla, stated, and I quote, "There is nothing in state law that defines an organizational meeting. There is nothing in state law that sets an agenda for an organizational meeting. There was nothing improper or in violation of any law at the January 2nd meeting or tonight, as I told the reporter for the Times Union." At the same meeting, Trustee Bernadette said, and I quote, "There was nothing violating the law. I appreciate that you guys don't agree with us. That's fine. You don't agree with us on anything. But you assert that there was something legal or the village violated any law is ridiculous and irresponsible. You have a responsibility to protect the village, and there's no definition in the law. There's a better rate if we go." And Frank said, "The things coming out of the mouths of these people on this board for 4 to 8 years, how do you not know these things? It was legal. To claim it wasn't a violation is which someone should bring you up on ethics charges." Now, according to New York State Consolidated Village Law 3312, filling of officers and vacancies by election or appointment, appointive offices, shall be filled at the annual meeting immediately following the expiration of their terms, or in the case of newly established offices at the time of their establishment. Additionally, state law, Village Chapter 64-400, says it is the responsibility of the mayor to appoint one of the trustees as deputy mayor during the annual meeting. The deputy mayor shall have the powers and duties of the mayor in the event of the mayor's absence or inability to serve. At no time before or after either meeting has this board addressed this. At no time has the village attorney addressed this. And at no time have Bernadette or Frank apologized or acknowledged at the least misleading statements, but more appropriately, blatant lies. And now we have a new law to repeal and replace the old one. Big surprise. Not surprisingly, this new law gives the majority of the board, who I can rattle off as having given us false or misleading statements 6 ways to Sunday this year, the discretion to hold the meeting anytime they decide in the first 2 weeks, leaving the village once again floundering to accommodate your schedule, Frank. But before you vote, Trustee Bernadette and Mayor Rossi, I'd like to remind you that you have a self-interest in the passage of this law because of your wrongdoing. In New York State, a village trustee should refrain from voting on a motion before the board in several circumstances, primarily related to conflict of interest. Conflict of interest if the trustee has a personal or financial interest in the matter. Personal interest. Bernadette and Frank, you lied. You lied. At the least, you misspoke or you misframed it, but you gave us the appearance of impropriety. And now you shouldn't be voting. And to vote, it makes the situation worse. So I would suggest Frank and Bernadette address and explain these inaccuracies you've made regarding the issue, and you should refrain from changing the law at this time, or you, Bernadette and Frank, should abstain. I'd like to hear from Carla. Thank you.
Can we turn it down, because he's yelling and it's like brutal.
He's done, don't worry about it.
Well, whoever is loud.
It's fine, we need to be able to hear it, it's
Okay.
fine.
Anybody else? Seeing none, can I get a motion to close the public hearing at 7:09 PM on local law number 1?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Bernadette,
I'll second.
trustee Mary, and discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Let's do it again. Second verse nearly same as the first here. Village of Ballston Spa, notice of public hearing to consider adoption of local law. Notice is hereby given pursuant to section 20 of the municipal home rule law of the state of New York that a public hearing will be held by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa on January 27, 2025 at 7:03 PM at the Village Office, 66 Front Street, Ballston Spa, New York, for the purpose of considering the adoption of local law number 2 of 2025. If adopted, local law number 2 of 2025 would amend chapter 200, water and sewers, of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa by 1, repealing and replacing section 200-21B1, 2, repealing and replacing section 200-37E, and 3, repealing section 200-37F. Public are permitted to attend and provide comments at the above location. Written comments on local law number 2 of 2025 can be submitted to the village clerk up and through the time of the public hearing. A copy of proposed local law number 2 of 2025 can be obtained at the village offices and on the village's website. If anybody would like to speak on this, we are opening at 7:11 PM on this public hearing. Please raise your hand on either Zoom or in the room. Seeing neither, can I get a motion to close the public hearing at 7:11 PM for local law number 2? Close.
7-11 still.
We always add a minute in those, and that's why I just asked, I wasn't sure.
No,
Okay.
it's whatever the actual.
Oh, thank heaven.
Well, no,
7:11.
just double checking. I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Baskin, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. One of those later. Gotta get a motion that the minutes of the January 13th, 2025 meeting be approved.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa.
I'll second.
Trustee Price Bush, discussion.
There was one error, small error, not consequential, but in the vote on making the village a lead agency, I voted yes initially before voting no on the measure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. No presentations. Public comment on agenda items only, 3 minutes per speaker. If you'd like to speak on any agenda item, please raise your hand, or on Zoom, raise your hand electronically at this time. Seeing nothing in the crowd, anybody in Zoom? Lori, go ahead.
Just unmute to this is Lori, AC 25 Eastern Ave. I just wanted to mention in regards to our change order for the library, for Mazzone Heating and Cooling, or Heating and Plumbing. On the agenda, it's noted as $1,661. And I just wanted to clarify that what was sent in for the meeting was the AIA document 2-001 and the total amount of $2,688. And I think the confusion may be there's 2 pieces underneath that AIA document that went in. So one was for $1,027.03, and the second piece is for $1,661. So the total would be $2,688, not just the one piece.
Lori, is that entirely due right now? What's in the change order? Because what happens, and I was going to have a tough conversation with you about it, but just so everybody understands it. Change orders are motions. Payments are basically on our abstract. So when things come due and owing, we don't actually vote for those because we've already approved contracts on that stuff. So I believe the change order, I'm just trying to dig it up here in my documents here. Let's see if I can find it quick. Let's see, we've got Butler Roland Mays, who's a payout, it looks like. We've got $72,000 payout as well, right?
Right.
Trying to find the rest. Let's see, Terracon, that's the other one. So the change order itself is or is not $1,661?
No, so the change order is for $2,688. The number for the AIA document change order is 2-001.
Yeah, Carlos got it, so we'll make a note of that when we go to the consent agenda in a moment.
Okay, thank you so much.
Got it, thank you.
It was rezoned, right?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go, got it. Okay. So, with the consent agenda item changing, number 5, or little 5, that is approving the attached change order in the amount of $2,688. $2,688, no cents, replacing 1661. Can I get a motion approving the consent agenda items listed on the agenda? Trustee Fandesa, trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. One note on this first motion, we caught the fact, thank you, Carla. You do your job so well, despite what some people might want to say. $19,999.99 is the new value on that because of the $20,000 procurement rule. I don't have the invoice in front of me, but I did get verbal confirmation from the folks at Admar today that they would take it down to $19,999.99. Why not, right?
Well, if it comes up to 20,000, then.
Yep, exactly. So can I get a motion approving the purchase of a roller from Admar Construction Equipment and Supplies for $19,999.99, still the lowest of the three quotes provided in the attachments and below $25,000 budgeted in this fiscal year, and authorizing the mayor to execute any related paperwork for the purchase. Trustee Fandesa, trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Can I get a motion approving the space rental agreement between the Village of Ballston Spa and the Saratoga County Historical Society at the Brookside Museum for usage of Brookside Museum space by the Committee on the Arts, and authorizing the mayor to execute said agreement? Trustee Fandesa,
I'll second.
trustee Price Bush, discussion.
Yes, this costs us nothing. They're just letting us use their space.
Thank you to them for that.
So the rental agreements for $0.
Yeah.
No.
They're like,
For our good looks and
It's for
charm.
liability.
yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Proposed local law number 1, we did a seeker, no, we did the seeker lead agency, but now we have a seeker resolution. I had it on my screen too.
Well, if I may.
You absolutely may.
Okay. We do this every time the board does a local law. This is your seeker. You have a copy of part 2. And in part 2, I took I went through questions 1 through 11 and checked that the adoption of the law would have no or small impact, environmental impact. I'm happy to read each of the 11 questions and have the board give me an answer, or if the board is okay with having all of them already marked as no or small impact, we can move on to part 3, whatever the board's desire is.
And just to clarify, part 3 is where we discuss the merits of
No,
No,
the motion.
that's the motion itself.
nope, we're still in seeker.
For seeker, yeah.
Oh,
Part-
okay.
I think that's.
Part 2 is the check boxes. Part 3 is your determination of significance.
Okay, and then the fourth thing we do, or the next thing we do is to talk about the motion itself.
Yes, I had sent an annotated agenda earlier today to the entire board that set forth the procedure, so I hope everybody got it.
Okay, does everybody want to dispense with the reading of those items for the seeker?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Okay, so then if you go to part 3, you'll notice the determination of significance identified that the action has no adverse impacts on public health or facilities. The adoption of the law is a reasonable exercise of government authority, and the purpose of the law is to provide a process for the setting of the annual organizational meeting. And based on that, you have taken a hard look at the environmental impacts which may occur as a result of the adoption and found that there was no significant environmental impact. And as such, the resolution would be that there would be, basically it's a negative declaration. Is that something that the board wants to make in its adoption?
Yeah.
All right, is that, okay, I would say, so you made a motion for a negative
Trustee
declaration.
Fandesa with the motion for negative declaration.
Second.
Second by trustee Raymond. Discussion? Roll call on these, please.
Trustee Baskin?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Fandesa?
Yes.
Trustee Prince
Yes.
Mayor Rossi?
Yes.
So you'll have to sign those, Mayor.
Can I get a motion approving?
Well, you have notice
Do
of
I have-
adoption, you have a resolution.
Where is it? I'm scrolling here and I can't find it. You have it?
Oh, I'm
There you go.
sorry. It's attached
Not the
to.
secret one for some reason. Okay, hold on. I found two. You got one? Of course you did that.
Sorry. Trying to see one.
Okay, can I get a motion about the following resolution entitled Resolution Adopting Local Law Number 1, or Local Law 1 of 2025, repealing and replacing Chapter 45, Officers and Employees, Section 45-9, Board of Trustees Annual Organizational Meeting of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa, the Board is considering the adoption of Local Law Number 1 of 2025, which, if adopted, repeals and replaces Section 45-9, Board of Trustees Annual Organizational Meeting of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa as follows. 45-9, Board of Trustees Annual Organizational Meeting. The annual organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees shall be held at any time after the beginning of the official year and before the second Monday of the official year, at or before the last regular meeting in December of the prior official year. The village board shall determine the date, time, and location of the meeting. Absent a prior approved motion by the Board of Trustees setting such meeting for a specific date, time, and/or available location, the mayor shall set the meeting for a date, time, and location as soon as practicable, with such date following the start of the official year. Such meeting shall be noticed pursuant to the requirements of the law of the state of New York and shall be known as the organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees. And whereas the board finds that the adoption of local law number 1 of 2025 is in the best interest of the village, and it is necessary to provide the health, safety, and welfare of the village residents and property owners, and to provide a process for the setting of the annual organizational meeting of the Board of Trustees within the Village of Ballston Spa, and whereas the board finds that the adoption of local law number 1 of 2025 is a necessary and proper exercise of the authority of the board, or by the board, and whereas the authority for the enactment of this local law is found in section 10L1, I believe that is, of the Municipal Home Rule Law, and whereas pursuant to section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, a public hearing on the proposed adoption of local law number 1 of 2025 was properly noticed in the newspaper and posted and was duly conducted on January 27th, 2025 at the Village, or Ballston Spa Village Hall, 66 Front Street, Ballston Spa, New York, and whereas the board has considered the public comments provided before and those at the public hearing, whereas the board serving as lead agency for the unlisted action under seeker reviewed a short environmental assessment form and determined that the action does not present any adverse environmental impacts, and whereas after thorough review and deliberation, the board proposes to adopt local law number 1 of 2025, and whereas the attorney for the village has prepared the necessary documents for filing this local law with the Secretary of State, thank you. Now therefore be it resolved that the board hereby adopts local law number 1 of 2025, which repeals and replaces section 45-9, Board of Trustees Annual Organizational Meeting of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa as described above, and be it further resolved that the board adopts the authorizes the filing of a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and be it further resolved that the board hereby authorizes the village clerk and the attorney for the village to make such minor modifications to the local law documents as they deem necessary, and thereafter are directed to execute and file the said documents as required by law, and to take all of the necessary action for the promulgation thereof. Trustee Fandesa. Trustee Price Bush, discussion. I'll have some water while you guys discuss.
You go first.
Yeah, I can go first. I mean, I've made my views on this pretty clear. I don't even see why we are changing the law. The law we have works perfectly well. There is actually no logical or rational reason to change it, other than maybe it potentially conflicts with somebody's schedule. So they want flexibility to do it. To change it to whatever date or whatever time. The existing law can work perfectly well, just means we have to kind of bend our schedules around that date. And there isn't really anything that is pertinent that immediately has to be done. All appointments can be done prior and made effective at a certain date. Oath of office can be done prior. It was made clear in the last meeting that the swearing in is just perfunctory and it's simply a ritual. And it has no bearing on their ability to do their job. I don't see a compelling reason to change the law. And even if we are gonna change it, there's language in here that I don't understand. In the absence of a prior approved motion by the board, there's no scenario that I can possibly think that would ever happen. I'm sure there could be a majority of the board that could pick a date within that time frame. Now, it may not work for everybody on the board, but that's why there's 5 board members, and that's the beauty of a board government. One person isn't critical. Government continues on. That's how democracy works. So I just don't see a reason for this law.
I agree. I don't see a reason to change this law. All the board needs to do is simply make a motion as to where the meeting will be held. That's the only thing that's not specified in the current law, and it's the only thing the board has to decide. I don't think there should be the ability for the mayor, for anyone to change the meeting at the last minute. I think that's a recipe for chaos. I think it would open the door to the possibility of repeating the fiasco from this year, where we essentially had 2 organizational meetings in 1 year. I don't know that the mayor fully realizes the significance of changing meeting dates at the last minute. I want to remind you what the editorial board of the Daily Gazette said about that. They said in an article, there's a reason government boards have public meetings and why they're required to post information about the meeting and agenda beforehand. It's so everyone with an interest in what's taking place at the meetings, most importantly, members of the public, know what's going on with their community and can make plans to attend those meetings if there's something that affects their lives. If you mess around with the scheduling and agendas of meetings, you mess around with the public and the right to know about their government's actions. On Thursday night, Ballston Spa Village Council members Ben Baskin and Sean Raymond walked out of the special meeting called by Mayor Frank Rossi Jr. after raising questions about its legality and about an agenda that included elements of the village's upcoming annual organizational meeting. The mayor said he organized the special meeting a few days earlier than the scheduled village organizational meeting for the convenience of new village appointees who need to sign up for a county planning meeting before a certain deadline. The council members argued that the mayor purposely changed the date of the annual organizational meeting without proper notification to board members and the general public. They said it represented a pattern by the mayor of disregarding procedures, traditions, and law to suit his own convenience. The mayor, as the chief executive of the village, has a responsibility to ensure that the public, members of government boards, and village employees are fully informed about meeting content and about any changes to agendas, especially when the public has come to expect certain business to be conducted at certain meetings. He can't just randomly be calling special meetings out of the blue for his own convenience or for some questionably urgent purpose or to push through a personal agenda. The state open meetings law spells out the proper procedures for scheduling and notification of public meetings to ensure the public has ample time to learn what's happening at those meetings, to make arrangements to attend meetings of interest to them, and to review documents that will be discussed at those meetings. The mayor should better acquaint himself with that law. Most importantly, he should pledge to conduct himself and his office in such a way as to ensure that citizens and fellow government officials are kept fully informed and have the best opportunity to fully participate in government decision-making. End quote. So that's from the editorial, that's the official voice of the Daily Gazette on the importance of not messing with village meetings and their dates. And this law basically gives you permission to do that. And for that reason, I think it should not be passed, and the current law is perfectly adequate.
I'm not at liberty to address the Daily Gazette editorial, so at this point in time, I will ask for a roll call.
Trustee Baskin?
No.
Trustee Raymond?
No.
Trustee Fandesa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes, it is approved 3-2. Let us go to the same process for local law number 2 to Madam Attorney.
So again, you all have in front of you, it's the same seeker process, short form part 2, everything is marked no or small impact. And your part 3, the local law number 2, the result of that, you've taken a hard look. There will be no significant environmental impact. It has no adverse impacts on public health or facilities, and the purpose is to provide clarification and protection to property owners relating to the billing for water and sewer usage and the fees and penalties to be incurred within the Village of Ballston Spa. And I marked that you determined that there was no significant adverse environmental impacts. Like the prior one, we can go through each of the 11 questions and the determination of significance if you would like, or you can look at it and if you're okay with it, you can have a motion for a negative declaration, but that's up to the board.
Are we willing to dispense with the reading of these again?
Yes.
Carla, it looks like we're going to dispense, so you're looking for a motion for negative declaration.
Correct.
Would anybody like to make such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Price Bush, discussion. Roll call?
Trustee Baskin?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Fandesa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Mayor Lawson?
Yes. That was
This is in the next slide.
Yeah, it wasn't the last page, so here we go. Can I get a motion for the following resolution? The resolution is entitled Resolution Adopting Local Law 2 of 2025, amending Chapter 200, Water and Sewer of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa. Whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Ballston Spa, the Board is considering the adoption of Local Law Number 2 of 2025, which if adopted amends Chapter 200, Water and Sewers of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa as follows. 1. Repealing and replacing Section 200-21B1 with the following text. If a water bill is paid within the first 25 days of the date of the bill, or by the last day of the month in which it is issued, whichever is later, the bill amount is due. 2. Repealing and replacing Section 200-37E with the following text. The bills and any penalties for non-payment for sanitary sewage services shall be rendered and collected in the same manner and at the same time as is presently provided for the rendition and collection of water bills in Section 200-21 above. And 3. Repealing Section 200-37F in its entirety. And whereas the Board finds that the adoption of Local Law Number 2 of 2025 is in the best interest of the village, and it is necessary to provide for the health, safety, and welfare of village residents and property owners, and to provide clarification and protection to property owners relating to the billing for water and sewer usage and the fees and penalties being incurred within the Village of Ballston Spa. And whereas the Board finds that the adoption of Local Law Number 2 of 2025 is a necessary and proper exercise of authority by the Board, and whereas the authority for the enactment of this local law is found in Section 10L1 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, and whereas pursuant to Section 20 of the Municipal Home Rule Law, a public hearing on the proposed adoption of Local Law Number 2 of 2025 was properly noticed in the newspaper and posted and was duly conducted on January 27, 2025 at the Ballston Spa Village Hall, 66 Front Street, Ballston Spa, New York. And whereas the Board has considered the public comments provided for and those made at the public hearing, and whereas the Board is serving as lead agency for the unlisted action under SECRA, reviewed a short environmental assessment form and determined that the action does not present any adverse environmental impacts, and whereas after thorough review and deliberation, the Board proposes to adopt Local Law Number 2 of 2025, and whereas the attorney for the village has prepared the necessary documents for filing this local law with the Secretary of State, thanks again. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board hereby adopts Local Law Number 2 of 2025, which amends Chapter 200, Water and Sewers of the Code of the Village of Ballston Spa as described above, and be it further resolved that the Board adopts and authorizes the filing of a negative declaration under the State Environmental Quality Review Act, and be it further resolved that the Board hereby authorizes the village clerk and the attorney for the village to make such minor modifications to the local law documents as they deem necessary, and thereafter are directed to execute and file the said documents as required by law, and to take all the necessary action for the promulgation thereof. Can I get a motion for that resolution? Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Price Bush, discussion. Hearing none. Roll call.
Trustee Baskin?
Yes.
Trustee Raymond?
Yes.
Trustee Fandesa?
Yes.
Trustee Price Bush?
Yes.
Yes, 5-0, the motion and resolution is approved. Can I get a motion approving the attached proposal from Labella Associates DPC for work to be performed related to Milton Water District Number 3 improvements, with such expenses to be recovered by water district users, period? No?
I had to change it and send it.
Oh, I didn't see that part.
Agenda.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Read it as you have.
So it's a motion approving the attached proposal from Labella Associates DPC for work to be performed related to Milton Water District Number 3 improvements, with such expenses to be paid by the village and reimbursed by Water District 3 users.
Sorry about that. I was close.
And authorizing the mayor to execute said proposal.
Yes, that part too. Trustee Fandesa? Trustee Price Bush, discussion. All in favor?
Well, the question I have is, do we have water districts 1 and 2, or how many water districts are there and how many more do we need?
That's why we're consolidating, because it's not really certain, but this is a discernible one called Milton Water District Number 3.
It's not certain how many we have.
We don't have any. The town has the water
All right,
districts.
so how many do
that-
we need them to have?
No, that's what's going on with the consolidation.
Right.
That they don't know how many, they don't know what they're called. Some of them are called the wrong thing, so they're working on consolidating them into Consolidated Water District Number 1. That's what they're working on doing right now.
All right, and this is a clear consolidated water district of its own. I mean,
No,
it's a
this-
clear water district.
It's
Correct.
the Water District. Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Can I get a motion to complete the following paragraph in the rules of procedure? Quote, meetings shall be limited to a maximum of 2 hours, exclusive of public hearings, presentations, and executive session, if any. In the event the 2-hour limit has expired prior to the second public comment, presiding officer shall, in their discretion, extend the time limit to accommodate up to 30 additional minutes to allow for the second public comment section, and up to 15 minutes for board response.
I'll make the motion.
Trustee Gaskin, Trustee Raymond, discussion?
So this, I don't know if anyone else wants to talk first, but they can if they want. But I put this forward because of what happened last meeting, which I felt was not proper, even if it followed the letter of the rules of procedure, because if you effectively eliminated the ability of board members to have items on the agenda by just skipping over them. So, I don't think that was an accident, and I think that you used time as a weapon, and you've used it before when you first joined and you were in the minority, and the meetings immediately jumped to 4 or 5 hours. I feel like you used time, you clearly, your goal was to drag your feet on basically everything and slow every step of progress, and one way you did that was to drag out board meetings for 4 or 5 hours. You did this through endless back and forth conversations between you and your friends in the audience, in clear violation of the rules of procedure, through long speeches, and by drawing out every vote you didn't like for as long as possible. Once you got your majority on the board, you no longer needed to draw out the meetings, and the 4 to 5 hour meeting disappeared. So I think you're not a terrible timekeeper, which is the other alternative interpretation, that you have no concept of how to manage a meeting's time. I think you use it intentionally and as a weapon. So at the last meeting, where you talked for as long as you felt justified in deleting a chunk of the agenda, including 3 items I had put on, and the ability of board members to discuss issues on their mind at the end of the meeting. Board members have a right to put items on the agenda, as I did, and that means actually discussing them at the meeting. You should not have the right to skip over them because you prefer the sound of your voice over all others. This paragraph was in the rules of procedure last year, and at that time I warned about the potential for abuse of this paragraph. But you refrained from abusing it last year. But last meeting shows that you're quite willing to go there and use it as a weapon to silence trustees. Because you should not have that power to silence other trustees, it should be removed.
I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think the meetings are pretty on point. I know the last meeting kind of ended up going long, because there was a lot of mayor announcements, but I just don't see it as being necessary. And, you know, I was elected as a public representative, and I know the public likes more free speech, not less free speech, so.
Anybody else? Roll call.
Trustee Baskin?
Yes?
Trustee Raymond?
Yes,
Trustee Von Data?
No.
Trustee Chris Bush? No. Trustee, or Mayor Rossi?
No. 2 to 3, the motion does not carry. Mayor's announcements.
Did you, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, we have to do the
Yeah.
fire insurance one. Go right ahead.
I was wondering where you
Yep.
want me to do this. You guys have a copy of, our fire insurance renewal costs. They would like to go with Plan 1, which is, increasing by $201. So they asked if we could vote on it tonight so that we can get it paid and, continue our coverage, so.
So you're seeking a motion to approve Plan 1 of the Provident Insurance assessment for $865 annual premium for the Ballston Spa Fire Department and authorizing the mayor to execute such agreement.
Yes, I'd like to make that motion.
Trustee Fandesa, Trustee Price Bush, discussion. It is a
So-
spontaneous motion, so we do allow 90 seconds for anybody that wants to give public comment. So let me
Well-
just offer that up real quick to anybody.
so it's roughly a 25% increase?
Uh,
Because you
so
said
maybe
800 and it went up $200?
Yeah, so, whatever that ends up being in math, you're asking the wrong person for the quick math. But yeah, I mean, it
About
is,
33 and a
it
third percent.
Okay, it went up a
It
third,
was-
okay.
was 664
Yeah.
last year, so.
And
This came in late Friday, so that's why I didn't make the agenda, so.
And was that comparable to other increases in the industry, or, do you know?
That I don't know, they did, yeah, let me see if I can find.
I would say that everything fire has been going up
Well,
exponentially
everything's
lately.
going up,
Yeah,
yeah.
for fire especially, fire apparatus, fire insurance.
I'm glad I don't need flood insurance. Yeah.
It does not say, I could text, but.
Stay away
I
from
mean,
South Carolina shores.
that's fine, I didn't know if you had it.
I didn't, no, I looked in the
That's
emails,
fine,
I'm in there.
it is what it is, so.
Mhm.
Okay. I see nobody making public comment, so all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Mayor's announcements, a couple things. First, just to note that we did sign off on the prior approval for Wiswell Park to do the remainder of the pipe replacement to about $20,000 additional for that replacement. So that will be finished up soon, snow allowing at this point. Do want to address some confusion and some rumors that were going on. I think it was way too much over the last 24 hours. I can't speak to everything because it's technically not our case at this point, the part that everybody wants to talk about apparently. But there was not an ice raid in the Village of Ballston Spa, I can say without a doubt. There was a traffic stop yesterday after apparently a red light was run and erratic driving followed. For I think around Front Street and heading south, and one of our officers stopped the van that had made those bad moves, and they had actually pulled into Cunningham's parking lot, and our officer had phoned ahead for some state and federal and county, rather state and county assistance because he was outnumbered. I think it was about 8 to 1 in that scenario. So. Thank you to the Saratoga County Sheriff's Department for sending reinforcements as quickly as they did to keep the situation calm. Ashley was over there, and it was very calm, but yeah, you know, obviously a little daunting and kind of in a fishbowl scenario over there. We are obligated. This has nothing to do with the current administration because this is the same thing we would do under prior administrations. We did phone ICE in the Malta office to state that there were undocumented occupants in the vehicle. And it was up to them to make their decisions of what they wanted to do. They must have done their research and came and did take some of the occupants, not all of them. And at this point, it's an ICE case, and We want to thank our officers for the duty they do, because obviously a situation like that never automatically safe when you've got that kind of outnumbered position there. But based on the erraticness of that vehicle, the safety was first for them to make sure that nobody was going to get run over by anybody in that
Just wondering,
situation.
whose decision was it to call ICE?
That is the protocol when you go undocumented. So
It's-
that's happened a couple
So you
weeks ago.
called them? Or
What's that?
did you call them or the
I
state?
don't call them. If the police are the ones that inform, and that's the situation. That we had a DWI, I think, a couple weeks ago where that same protocol was used before January 20th. So that is the normal protocol.
Of our village police?
Yeah.
The village police will call ICE? That's
When
what I'm
they
asking.
encounter an undocumented person in a vehicle stop situation, yeah.
I'm not thrilled with that protocol. I didn't know there was a protocol. Do we have it written down somewhere? Is it a written protocol?
Moving right along in mayor's
No,
announcements.
that's a serious question. You're
And
calling it a
it's-
protocol, and I'd like to know, protocols are usually like written documents, not just off the top of someone's head, or, you know, like policies are written. So is there a written Carla, do you know if there's a written protocol about calling ICE?
I don't look at the police protocol, no.
Right,
I
so you're
don't.
not sure.
It's a question.
Well, that wasn't the, no, wait, before you put
What?
words in my mouth.
All right, go ahead.
I am unaware of what the protocol, policy, law is with respect to that. But if that is what has been done, you know, perhaps that's a question you can ask Chief Bush.
Well, the mayor's here and he's the.
But the mayor, it just indicated he wasn't the one who called it, so
No, he
he's
didn't
relying
say,
on
he
his.
didn't actually say, he
Yes, he
said the
did.
village. All right,
He-
so well, sorry, I didn't hear him say yes or no. He said that's the protocol.
He actually started out by saying the law enforcement officer called for backup with the county and state.
ICE was called. So it wasn't clear who called. So, all right, it wasn't you, it was Chief Bush?
Oh my God.
That's what I'm just asking. So someone at the village called.
The village police department likely called, and I would really ask you to ask the village police department individuals what the protocol is, because I don't think that we have that information here today. I would just call the
It
chief.
sounded like Frank knew what the protocol was. He's here.
The mayor indicated to you what was indicated to him by the police department.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else in mayor's announcements here?
Because that's serious, that's very serious conversation that we should be having in this village, about turning people over to ICE.
Yeah, you look like criminals.
We can talk more about that maybe at the next meeting.
Can't wait to see that agenda item.
Mhm.
I think that's about it for that stuff. I got more coming up later anyway, so, I did put parking schedule open.
You did.
You see that?
I noticed that.
I wasn't losing my mind completely, good. Okay, treasurer's report will be actually read live by our treasurer, Melissa McCann. Melissa, if you want to come out to the podium, go right ahead. Sure, it'll be easier to hear you that way.
Guest appearance.
Cameo.
Cameo appearance.
Everybody go easy on her. Her bills obviously had a rough night last night. But she still did come into work today.
I did.
Everyone's bills.
So utility update, the utility bills are going out and will be landing in residents' mailbox, either postal mail or by email. If anybody wants to do e-billing, we are more than welcome to do that, not this billing period, but in the future. Just call the village office with your email address and we can add it to your utility account. The utility bills will be due by the end of business on February 28th to avoid any penalties. The update on our new payroll system, complete payroll. As of this week, we've gone through 3 payroll weeks. We're still, well, I wrote this on Wednesday, but we are using the time and attendance portion starting yesterday with a few bumps in the road, but we're hopefully getting those resolved. We've got people that don't have emails registered with us and wrong email addresses, but we're getting through it. And what else did I write here? The village has a very complicated payroll due to the 2 union contracts and the intricacies that that presents. Complete payroll is making sure that the program will recognize the shifts that the Ballston Spa Police Department have with their pay differentials, and that it calculates the comp time in an accurate manner. Medical cards, we started with the lifetime benefit solution. Debit cards, most people have gotten them. We have a couple employees that are still waiting for their cards. Just as a reminder, we do have an access to the website. If you have any questions, that it's probably best to contact Lifetime Benefits, because I don't necessarily know if eye exams are covered on your debit card, but they certainly will. Sales tax, January sales tax for Saratoga County was $15,313,851, showing a decrease from the same period of time last year of $594,000. Year to date, the 2025 tax is down by just over $545,000. And the village will receive, or we did receive it, $104,822 last week. That's all I have. Spring is 59 days away.
Just to give some reassurance here, because we hear about the plight you have with some of the changes with the healthcare plans and the new payroll plan, but overall, this is for the best in the long run. I mean,
It is.
Why don't you give it a little thought on that?
It is.
for
I think
people.
I think you guys may know, or I've spoken about it before, we had ADP run for like 20 months or something, and it was just always challenging because our accounting firm was kind of like the middleman. So if we needed to get reports, we kind of had to call our accounting firm, because ADP wouldn't necessarily give us the okay to get those reports. So this is going to be so much easier. We talk to our representative, I call them, I don't have to go through, what's your last 4 digits of your social security number? What's your EIN number? What's your village, what's the name of your business? I don't have to do that. I just say, hi, Billy Joe. And it's really, it's immediate assistance, which is wonderful. And then if there's any kind of report that we've needed in this whole building process, they've been like, yeah, I think we can do that. And then like within a couple hours, we have the report that we were looking for, or something similar to it, and they can tweak it. So it's very customizable. I know employees are a little bit, they don't like change, they don't like going through new procedures to get like logged into it and onboarded on it, but in the long run, it's gonna be really nice. So I'm already seeing the benefits. And then just like the reports after payroll is run, it's kind of mind-boggling how many things that I can pull up. Just so you know, Frank. Can you pull a report for? I probably can.
Budget time is coming.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's gonna be really great. And it's actually, I think in the end, it's a little bit less expensive than what we were paying ADP, so.
Well, thank you very much. And good to see you.
I just want to ask you something, or maybe just ask if you're working on some things. I was looking at the last profit and loss statement, and thank you very much for sending those out. I appreciate it.
Sure.
There's a few things that are like way higher, at this time of year relative to the percent of the year that's gone by. And so for example, and some things we have no control over. The retirement piece is already more than 100% of the budget amount. Workers' comp is running high. We're having engineering fees that are over 300% over budget, and central garage contracts, Kelly Playground's over, fire department's way over budget, and street administration contracts. Is there something that we should be thinking about in the short term in terms of budget modification prior to next year with those overruns?
We'll look at that, obviously, as part of the process. So each component you just mentioned has different parameters or different anomalies that will feed in, like playground. I mean, this time of year, we're not putting money into the playground. So if we're going on a monthly share, or what the percentage of the year is that it's been used, then obviously, it's going to be heavy on the beginning and not toward this part of the year. So that's what we look at. I pull reports, probably get one set as of January 31st over the next week or so. we'll be doing the budget request forms and all that stuff, obviously, too. Get those out so that we catch everybody in February. I put out then a budget in March, and that is taken into account. We look at that. It's a green section for us on the budget, but it's shaded in the middle of the list that looks at projections for the entire year, and then we base next year's number off of those, or at least look at why it's high or low in either direction.
Do we need to use any of our annual fund balance, do you feel, in this year as a result of running out of these?
Well, we scheduled using 500,000 because of a bunch of carryover items from the previous year. So that was actually less when you netted out what we had said we're using fund balance in fiscal year 24 and didn't. We actually committed less in 25, but we reused the same stuff from 24. So we already are, and so some of that may be just getting also characterized wrong, coded into areas, and so it's also an opportunity for me to take a deep dive for first time in a little while to see if things were being coded wrong. We fix those on the fly as well with Box assisting us too. So there's a method to the madness with all this, but we make sure that we're priming up right because obviously it affects tax rates and everything else moving forward. So.
Yeah, the next 4 to 6 weeks or so, we'll have a better handle on what we're looking at for the next year.
This is when Melissa ends up hating me because I'm like, pull me this report, pull me this number, pull me that. And
I don't hate you, Frank.
You're too kind. Thank you for coming
You're
out.
welcome.
Liaison reports, Bernadette.
Mine are short tonight. Just a reminder for Chocolate Fest, which is coming up on, get my calendar open. It's going to be the first Friday of February, which is the 7th. Starts at 5 p.m. There are 30 participants, which is awesome. 30 chocolatiers. The map and guide will be done soon, and the BSBPA will be posting that. That is always a really great event for our downtown businesses, considering that winter is really difficult to get people in your door shopping. It's a really wonderful way to promote our community, and it's always really packed, even if it's frigid. So just a reminder about that, and I encourage folks to come out. That's all I got.
Mary.
Let's see, the Ballston area seniors are planning a trip to Nellie's in East Durham. It's scheduled for March 11th. There's 2 seats available in the back of the bus. $45 for residents and $55 for non-resident members outside of Saratoga County. So if you're not a member, they've got a lot of activities going on all winter long. Bingo still, you can stop in and play. The task force is planning dates for the Easter egg hunt, Hope for Children, and Family Fun Day. So those dates will be coming up soon. And AARP is holding the free tax help with the library again this year. So you can call the library to make an appointment and pick up information packages. And all appointments will be held at Cornell Cooperative Extension 50 West High Street, but you do need an appointment to be seen. That's it.
Thank you, Mary. Ben.
Park and Tree, they are reviewing and coming up with recommendations for Wiswall Park specifications, the kinds of pathways or the features of the gazebo, and honing in on those things. They're developing a budget plan for watering for next year to try to make it more comprehensive and coordinated, and just come up with a general budget for next year. They're starting that conversation. They've also created extensive tree recommendations, so that the village will be following, I assume, and but also they're available for citizens, anyone who wants to plant trees in the village. It's very helpful committee that way. Their next meeting is February 18th at 7 p.m. at Cornell Cooperative Extension. The Arts Committee is going gangbusters as usual. They're got tons of energy. January 31st, they are planning an open mic night for music. So the last one was poetry, this one's music, 6 to 9 p.m. at the Real McCoy. You gotta go to the Committee on the Arts Facebook page to register if you want to play music at this event. So that's January 31st coming up. They are also planning to participate in the Chocolate Fest on February 7th. That's still in play. They're not sure exactly where. On Saturday, February 8th at 3 p.m., they are hosting the Lark Quartet at Brookside Museum. It's free, but you need to register. I don't know if Donna's on the line, can tell us if it's already closed. It's always very popular. So last meeting, when I made the announcement, it was already too late to register. But if you want to go, register sooner than later. That's for this Saturday, not this Saturday, February 8th. They are also planning another random acts of poetry for April, and their next meeting is February 5th, 7 p.m. at Brookside.
One thing just to hone in on, we did have a good meeting with Jeff Anthony over at Studio A. Caitlin and I, she reached out to you, but I think it was
I couldn't do it yet. Thanks for letting me know.
We have an opportunity to save literally tens of thousands of dollars because of some work we're trying to get together on the pathways inside Wiswall Park. Honda Brothers is going to be partially responsible for some of that savings, and I'll flesh out more specifics when I'm able to soon, I think. Obviously, we got to get this done soon, but I just want to make sure we're not speaking too out of turn here, but with dollars and cents. But I can guarantee you that if it comes to fruition, literally tens of thousands of dollars, which we can utilize in other areas of parks, obviously because the Woods Hollow money is what we'll be utilizing for this, and it is obligated to parks. So it's just more money for parks down the line that we'll have. We can save there. So that's good news there. Sean.
DPW's been busy as usual. Been doing a lot of house cleaning at the water department and in the garage, trying to get things more organized and also identify surplus items. I've been doing truck maintenance repairs on the trucks as they go out and get used, and they're currently in the process of getting quotes for procurement of a new pavement roll.
You voted on it.
We voted on that tonight, so hopefully we've got quotes and we can move forward with that. They've been very busy replacing street signs, and that's why we voted tonight to order more, procure more, because they have more to do and they're running out. And then obviously the surplus items that they're trying to identify, they're gonna try to put in an auction, so hopefully there can be, some sort of revenue from them. And they're working with a utility on installing a gas line to the Geyser Road well house in anticipation of a generator for that location. And one of our newer employees, just got their commercial driver's license permit.
Tyler.
Yeah. And now we'll be going to the Teamsters for their commercial driver license training, so that they can take the test. So that's good. That takes pressure off the other guys, especially during snow and ice events. So, and they will be continuing work on a mandated EPA lead and copper survey, and have signed everyone up for UDIG safety classes in March. I also discussed with Scott today, I inquired about a bunch of different safety trainings that he was like, yes, please. So I'm gonna work with him to see, what's out there and available and what a rough cost is. And we should probably try to factor that into the upcoming budget.
Also, I misstated, Kate is the one that just got the permit. Tyler had gotten the license just before that. So one of the changes we made in the Teamsters agreement was because the Teamsters are now providing the simulator and the training, which is not the case until recently, we are obligating anybody coming to the door to get their CDL or to bring it with them to work for us in the garage. We grandfathered anybody that didn't have it at that point though, but we kind of told them, hey, it's 50 cents extra an hour for the CDL, why wouldn't you go get it if you can? With all that assistance with Teamsters, And as you said, it takes pressure off for salting especially, allows a little bit more of a rotation, and we talked overtime before about that. It may still involve overtime, but it's a lower end overtime when that's happening in that situation. So not everybody wants to work oodles of overtime at this time of year, and can't say I blame them on that at all. Let's go to old business parking schedule, and I think this probably is a good place for you to start on.
Sure. As the board is aware, you passed a completely rehaul of the parking code back in June. And you did it such that all of the schedules that used to be, that are normally in the law would be as a schedule that you could just change by resolution. With the help of Chief Bush and DPW Scott, we received what appeared to be inconsistent inventories of all of the areas within this village, of no parking, of parking 2 hours this time. So what Alex at my office has done, she's compiled everything and spent quite a number of hours trying to reconcile them, even looking at Google Maps, because there are some like painted parking spots that don't have signs and weren't in either inventory. So I spoke to the mayor about this last week, because I'm not quite sure where to go from here, because getting the inventory is not the legal part of it. Putting the schedule together and giving the law is. So I sent you all an email last week with 4 different options on what to do going forward. So I just kind of need to know where the board wants me to go here. I know that there are concerns. I know that there's ways you could do this so you just pass whatever there is now and then amend it as you go along. But I need some guidance from you folks, because I'm not quite sure how you want to move forward. I know it's a problem. I know the village, the store owners on Front Street are having issues. I'm sure there's other folks that are having issues as well. I only see those emails. And we don't need to do all the schedules at once. We can do 1 or 2 at the next meeting, but I just need to know because they don't reconcile. And I have the chief and I put Scott on all of these emails. So I need some guidance here.
So here's my thought. Jen and I were talking briefly about this. Jen, if you want to pop your head up for 1 second, this one. Probably over the next week, we will manage the process of getting at least the downtown business district sorted out and make sure that we have that approvable for the next meeting at the minimum on this whole thing. And then hopefully we can replicate that process for other pieces of the remaining parts of the village at that point.
So it's not per district though.
Understood, but it's a start.
It would be multiple schedules then, based solely on, there would be multiple schedules out there that would have no parking, but the no parking would only be on Front Street as you go through the rest of the village. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I just want to get us something for downtown business district to get us started, and then we can sort out where there are bad overlaps throughout the rest of the village over the next weeks from there. Because what you've left us with here is more than a 2-week scenario, but I think the downtown business district is manageable in 2 weeks because, look, it's right around here. So we can manage that with our resources without really creating big problems. So I would say that's probably not setting the goal too far ahead of us here. And that way too, we can get the PEO hired, because the PEO would be mainly in the downtown business district anyway. So that helps us get that engaged too at that point. And then we'll get the rest of the streets taken care of over the next month to 2 months at the worst.
Are you saying that, so what happens if there's not a schedule in place for the other parts, I guess is the question.
And there's the same thing that's happening right now.
Okay,
Right.
okay. Yeah, I know a few businesses contact me regularly,
Yep.
and then I bother Frank about it. Folks are kind of, disregarding the parking in crosswalks, parking in boxed out areas that our fire department really does not want vehicles there for turn radius for a truck. So I think that would be good to prioritize that. what kind of additional help might you need in this process?
That's what we gotta figure out, I think, by starting it,
Okay.
and that'll kind of identify itself, I think, at that point. If it comes down a couple more guys in DPW, if snow keeps holding off, hopefully, a little bit more, and getting them to volunteer, 2 days, to just go around and take handwritten inventory to the degree that, it's not matching up correctly. And, engaging our police officers to the degree that they see things that might not be correct on that as well, or things they can help us specify better. We'll figure this out. It's just a question of a lot of streets and a lot to bite off here to make sure we've got it right at this point, and might as well get it right. We spent all this time on it.
Well, and I also want to hear from the rest of the board too, and I want to make sure that they were able to look at what these schedules are going to look like. And if you look at them, for example, some of them say, for example, parking restrictions, Front Street, overnight. Well, where on Front Street and when? Like, is it all the time? Like a lot of it, and then some of it from the intersection of Front Street to a distance of how long. I mean, there's got to be a lot more information in this, and I just don't have that. So I don't know if Sean, you as DPW, can kind of help me out here. I'm not sure, because you want to get it done properly. But it's really, you need a full inventory of your village, and we're finding it's just not reconciling, and it makes our job difficult because we don't know what's in your village.
Well, you're gonna do a full inventory of existing conditions, that isn't necessarily also what you may wanna leave, right?
Well, I think we start there and then we scale back from there, and we see,
So
that doesn't make
amend
sense,
As we go.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons that we did it like a resolution, so that you don't have to do a local law each time you want to change a sign or add a handicap spot.
This is the heaviest lift of it all right now.
Right, and in the email I sent you all, I did send, there's an Excel spreadsheet that has everything on it. And Scott did a fabulous job of putting, this is where the signs are, this is everything, but
Give Glenn credit on that too.
Yeah.
Is it helpful to provide comments on that, like, or not really? I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I just, for example, we have an area where Chief Bush says, over the Gordon. I have no idea what that means. Y'all probably know what that means. But it says over the Gordon, no parking.
Not on the overpass.
But it doesn't say the name of the street, it doesn't say all the time, it doesn't say, and I'm not trying to be difficult, but you kind of need that, so when I go to court, or my associate goes to court to enforce that, I actually have something specific.
Well, yeah, but generally that's a blanket, no, you're not supposed to park on any street.
But see, again, all it says is over the Gordon, and that doesn't help, you guys know that, but that doesn't help me go to court when it says over the
I
Gordon.
guess that's my question. Do you want comments on that then? Like, this
Yeah,
is
whoever
my
wants-
preference for this part, or not, that's what I guess.
Well, I need I need to find out where all of the no parkings are. I need to find out where all of the, one-way streets are. I need to find everything that the chief puts a ticket for. That's what I need to know. And I need it to be specific and not vague, otherwise I can't enforce it. So that's why, maybe it is on the ground, walk around and see what's there. Because like I said, Alex went and found there's a parking spot, which isn't on either list, but it's literally on the ground, like it's painted. I can't enforce that. So if the point is to enforce these laws, I need a little bit more. I need you folks that live here to give me the data.
We will work on that for you. Okay, new business, starting with treatment of employees and consultants by board members. I'm going to read a statement at this point. I don't usually do this, but tonight I feel it's appropriate. Some folks may remember the motion we approved on January 22nd, 2024, which disallowed an individual member of the board of trustees, except for the mayor or anyone authorized by the mayor, from directing a consultant or employee of the village without board authorization. This motion was sought after several toxic board member interactions were encountered over the prior 2 years with staff members and consultants, including our attorney. At least one board member, for whatever reason, couldn't understand the magnitude of the toxicity of their interactions, leading to the motion. Over the past year, the motion has not been successful in eradicating the improper interactions. For one thing, the trustees who had those poor interactions continued some of them despite the prohibition, sometimes with me not even on the correspondence, despite me being in charge of staff matters as mayor. Such interactions were toxic and inflammatory, and while I cannot go into specifics on some of the interactions and the reactions they caused, I will just say that it has caused great discomfort for members of our staff. The problems, though, have continued to snowball, despite attempts to handle these issues privately. During the executive session late last year, one trustee became belligerent due to disagreement about subject matter I cannot discuss due to confidentiality. However, the board member told our village attorney, as well as trustee Bernadette and me, to F you, expletive not deleted by him, and yelled loud enough for people outside the building to hear him. This behavior is not protected by executive session confidentiality, but we hoped that the overall treatment of our consultant, in this case our attorney, would improve based on how everything played out that night. Unfortunately, that hasn't happened. Over the past week, interactions between that board member and our attorney reached a level that a third party on the emails indicated was condescending, stating, quote, "I'm at a loss for words, not only about his request, but his way toward Carla. Carla has managed her responses with the utmost of professionalism during this, but that has not been met with the equal level of professionalism and maturity back. It has continued for literally over a week now without resolution and without a cessation of the toxic approach. Maturity was also lacking after the January 2nd meeting, during which our village clerk appealed to trustee Raymond to stop yelling, to the degree that she requested that I allow a police presence during the recess at that meeting after the dust-up occurred. In later correspondence, I reminded trustee Raymond that he owed our clerk an apology based on prior issues she raised with him, raising his voice during meetings. Without copying me on his apology, he later sent it, and he also apparently sent it to the Times Union, since it was quoted from in Wendy Levator's article earlier this month. Our clerk ultimately shared the quote apology with me, and included sentences such as, "I can only imagine how impacted you must have been by the mayor's voice, since he was only a few feet away from you and I was across the room." The following meeting, trustee Raymond accused me of weaponizing our staff, and yet he fails to understand that the members of the staff have formed their own opinions based on the acts described above. They know their rights and the board's responsibilities as much as anyone, and they expect us to adhere to those responsibilities. I raise these issues because, as I said, the behavior and treatment toward our staff and consultants is not only poor, but it's becoming actionable against the village potentially. I've alerted our insurance broker about my concerns, seeking to find ways to help mitigate any potential village liability from these transgressions. One of the main reasons we pushed to get the employment handbook moving forward was to ensure we had much better internal policies related to these interactions, and I've spoken with our ethics board chairwoman to discuss concerns that might need to be addressed in future amendments to the ethics code to ensure we have some level of consequence for these improper board member actions. Yet, at the end of the day, the way to eliminate liability for the village is by the folks creating these toxic relationships in this uncomfortable environment to once and for all stop their aggressive and unfortunate actions immediately. I hope this statement will help everyone on our board to understand I will not tolerate further abusiveness by any member of our board. While our options are limited against elected officials conducting themselves in such a manner, that is no justification for continuing hurting and harassing the people who are the heart and soul of our village government more than any of us on this board are. Thank you to all of them for their continued loyalty and dedication to our village despite some of these issues. And I'm sorry I haven't been able to do more to make the experience lately better for those of you most adversely affected. I hope tonight finally marks a turn for the better.
So I'll respond. I hear what you're saying, and personally, I don't intentionally try to annoy anybody. I do have the right, not just the right, but the responsibility as an elected official to ask legitimate questions of staff and consultants. And if I'm not getting an answer or don't understand an answer, I have the responsibility to ask again or in a different way, to seek to continue to communicate, to ensure that clear communication occurs, and then my questions are answered to the extent possible. That is my responsibility as an elected official. They don't come anywhere close to how they've been described by you, Frank. I'm willing to put any and all of my interactions I've had with staff on the internet. I have absolutely nothing to hide. In return, if you put your interactions with me, Frank, and with Sean on the internet, and the public can decide who is the more belligerent, hostile, and insulting. And I think that your colleagues, also me and Sean, deserve the respect that you're asking of others. I feel that you use the accusation of being mean or inappropriate as a political attack strategy to effectively try to silence people you consider opponents. After I complained about not giving, here's an example. After I complained about not being given the time to research and properly consider your stipend proposal, your very first statement response out of your mouth was that I was disparaging DPW staff. I hadn't said a thing about DPW staff. That is a go-to attack strategy. It is a complete fabrication, and then you repeated it on Facebook. A couple of years ago, I asked the former deputy clerk if she knew why an invitation to an event was delivered to my mailbox 2 months after other people, trustees, got their invitation. I asked the deputy clerk if she knew why, and then I left. And after that took place, I was accused, not by her, but by others, including you, Frank, of harassment for asking that one little question. So this is a long-term strategy you have had to, quote, label us as toxic, to try to create wedge issues between us and staff. And I'm not saying I haven't annoyed staff, clearly I have, but it's not, in my opinion, in any way inappropriate the way I have interacted. And it's all recorded. You can see every meeting. You can, 99% of my interactions with staff are email, and I have nothing to hide. So maybe that's all I'll say now, but we can all share our emails and let the public decide. I am fine with that.
Did you scream at you?
Excuse me. Stop.
What? Yeah, stop, thank you.
I'll wait till public comment.
Good.
Nonetheless, Ben, I annoy staff, okay? I'm a demanding boss. We have a lot of things going on in this village. Okay, I could be absolutely classified as an annoying person when it comes to that demand. But I think there comes this ability with maturity and professionalism to understand how you treat people and how you don't treat people in that journey to get things done and make sure that the village runs and operates. I can only tell you that I deal with these folks all day, every day, and I know what their feelings are from interactions. And for instance, the one you mentioned about the mailbox thing, I was in the back office, I was on the phone, I remember that, and I had 3 people come back to me up in arms about the treatment level.
You didn't, and that didn't happen.
Excuse me?
That
It
just
didn't?
didn't happen. No, you're making things up.
No.
But go ahead.
Okay, well, Terry.
You were right in it, weren't you? You were part of that. It was
Guys,
you.
guys,
It was
guys,
you. It was all you.
There you go again.
Okay, well, my point is I hope you can understand even the interaction with Carla this last week, and I can get into the specifics of it, was over the top, just wouldn't end. I'm glad that Mary and Bernadette interjected where I even did on it, but it was just, there's a way, okay? I always say, by all means, you have a right to ask for things, yes, but also remember there was a motion that was passed last year that said that there's a way to handle these things too, and you're not abiding by that, but let's just say for a second that wasn't there. You've got to sort of ramp it down and take a look at, maybe put yourself in that person's shoes to understand, because the last email they got written tonight, just before this meeting by Carla, I've known her long enough now for what, almost 3 years, to know when a limit for her is even reached. And she has the tolerance of Job and then some on this stuff, and she was done in that email. And
Let's put the emails on the internet, because the way you describe things makes it appear much worse than they are. There was a back and forth because I asked for something that I thought was straightforward. It wasn't straightforward, and we were trying to figure that out. And that's how things work.
I'd just like to add that in the particular instance you brought up, I do have a tendency to get passionate about things, especially if the gravity of the situation that we were in breach of state law. And I thought that was important. I also indicated to you very clearly that if you continue to interrupt me and not let me finish my statement, I would have to raise my voice, and you continue to interrupt, and you continue to raise the level of your voice. So it doesn't leave me, when you interrupt, and my right to speak, it doesn't leave anybody very many options.
As I said, I brought to you the need for an apology. Why would you send it to the Times Union or have somebody else?
I wanted to make it public so everybody knew I made a public apology.
Then why would you send it to all of us in the process? I don't get it.
And you don't need to have a reason. That's my apology, and I can do whatever I want with it. You can have an opinion about it, but
It's an apology, that's a
yeah.
good thing.
Well,
I mean, it did have facts in it that may have been inconvenient for you, but that's not my problem.
anybody else want to make any? Okay. Board members' priorities and focus. Again, going back to some of the discussion, I wasn't going to say it twice in the same meeting, but at this point, I find it a little bit worrisome, to say the least, that at the last meeting, I brought up, about 7 or 8 different issues that we are working on in the village, things that people in this village care about, water, sidewalks, safety issues, a whole bunch of different things, parks. And just like a general update of the state of, state of the village, state of the town, state of whatever type of scenario. And we interacted during the grand majority of those. I think it was 41 minutes since I was pretty much, told I took up half the meeting, which I didn't. But 41 minutes, including the treasurer's report, and several of those minutes were us interacting about those things. You asking questions about statuses on certain things that you wanted to know more about. And we had a conversation about it. Now, why that's being used, we went past the 2-hour mark. I let us go to 2:05 to make sure we got liaison reports in for you folks. We did the public comment. We had the 15-minute response, which is all in rules of procedure at that point in time. But why you're beating me over the head with a hammer for focusing on the priorities and things the village residents care about, because those were the things. I mean, and you see from Facebook reactions from the list of things, and I elaborated on those. Instead of reaching out and saying, hey, what can we do to help out with this litany of stuff that you're taking on, that the village is taking on right now, and anything else, the only motion that comes from this week was to change the rules of procedure, and that's kind of similar to, the whole kerfuffle about organizational meeting and everything else at the end of the day. And honestly, the email exchange with Carla is just another example of, Carla's got 9,000 things she could be doing for the village right now. Instead, she has to respond to email after email that essentially are attacking her integrity in this whole situation with what you're, berating her about. And it takes away from time that we have other things that need to get done here. Our priorities seem to be really in the wrong spot. Like I said, I was hoping after last meeting, want you two, Mary, Bernadette, even if they had any time, reach out and say, hey, what can we do? What can we help out with here? Because that's a lot, and it's not there. So
That's an inaccurate statement.
When did you reach out to me?
I know I provided a rough draft of sidewalk law to you, so it's not that I haven't been contributing. actually no one but me contributed to that.
No, actually, the entire board did because we have a draft from last year
You're
still.
right, that Ben created. So Ben did contribute.
That's not the draft we're talking about. This was the one that Carla actually had worked on with the entire board. But long story short, Sean,
Well, it left out a huge piece, which was we need some sort of enforcement in mandatory construction, which has languished for months, going on a year now.
right now we're waiting to see when we're gonna get the $500,000 to see how we're gonna apply that and go from there. The $500,000 is a large chunk of money for the sidewalks for
He
us.
said when, so it's 100% guaranteed.
We are in the federal budget as long as nothing changes, and according to Congressman Tonko's office, as I explained last time, community projects like this have never been actually written out of the different budget approaches, despite the fights that have gone on throughout the years. They've come at different times, and the budget approvals taking longer than others, but they've never gotten fully written out.
Well, funding is great, but it doesn't change that we need some sort of law.
It's funny because a second ago you were telling us to stop talking to consultants, stop talking to staff, that would be inappropriate. But at the same time you said, oh, you should have been talking to DPW before, when Jeff retired. But if we had done that, and everyone in the village knows, you would have been screaming bloody murder that we were talking to the DPW
He's
about.
the liaison for a reason, Sean, or for Sean is the liaison, Ben, sorry. So actually Sean had the right to because he's my designee to speak to DPW.
If you were considering that management change, you should have brought it to our attention that you were doing that. The Wiswall Park, you have, until Caitlin told me the last meeting, after I requested it, you have gone to a dozen meetings of Wiswall Park design, never told me that they were even happening. So you need to communicate to us what assistance you seek from us, and also what you are doing. You are not transparent.
Caitlin
you are not
invites me to
collaborative.
meetings, just as an FYI. She invites me to meetings. I don't invite the world to somebody else inviting me to a meeting. I'm very happy she does because I love seeing Jeff Anthony and talking about the ideas and whatnot. He's a very wise man with this stuff. But I'm not going to sit there and invite everybody unless she asks me to. I did, based on your comment in the last meeting, say to Caitlin once we knew what time we were meeting, hey, could you reach out to Ben? Because I figured she had you on faster speed dial than I did that day, and I was a little bit under pressure with other stuff, and she did, and unfortunately you couldn't make it. So I don't know what that complaint is. She's the one that invites me to these meetings.
You complain that we don't work on things proactively, but you give us no opening to do that whatsoever. We all know you are in charge, you're the only opinion that matters, and you're gonna do what you wanna do, and we're just here.
We're generally informed after the decisions are made.
I mean, look at it.
We're not allowed, we're not in the collaborative process. I mean, you have to tell us that something is
You were
going.
very much in a collaborative process 2 weeks ago, and then I got
For what?
basically shut down on the idea that I talked 41 minutes, which I wasn't me talking 41 minutes on stuff that you wanted to know what's going on.
I didn't ask any questions. As a matter of fact, most of what you talked about was regurgitation from previous meetings. And it made me wonder why you're saying something and not just telling the public, go look at this meeting, because I already said it in a public meeting.
If I had known that you were
I
going
don't
to.
understand.
Right, and if I knew you were going to cut out parts of the meeting, I would have said, Frank, can we move on? It's up to you. It's your responsibility to properly manage the meeting for time to make sure we actually get through the agenda. And so, again, if I knew you were going to, for the first time, enforce the 2-hour rule, you better believe I'd say, Frank, let's move it along, because you were talking way for 41 minutes, but it felt like a lot longer. It's just inappropriate and irresponsible as someone who presides at this meeting to not manage your time and our time, because this is not just your meeting, this is a board meeting for all of us and of all of us to get through the agenda as it's listed. And of course it makes it meaningless to say that we can all add agenda items to the agenda and then just skip them. And so I think that was an abuse of your prerogative as the person who presides. And I would ask you that just have better time management. I don't mind you talking about multiple things at a meeting, but don't go on for so long that you have to skip part of the agenda and basically silence other board members as a result. That's all.
Well, you're just making the argument that we should go back and vote again on that deletion, so we have more time for more free speech and more collaboration.
To put a bow on this, how about we all try better? We all collaborate.
I would
Frank
love
has
to
brought
see a
some stuff up.
collaborative email. I haven't seen one in your tenure.
I think we've all said enough. Let's move on. This is really getting ridiculous.
And in terms of priority, just for this item, my priority is the zoning. That is my top priority. And so you will see questions and emails about zoning because it is so important and it is happening now.
And we will have an opportunity to weigh on that and look at the code that they proposed to us. You are not being prevented from commenting on that, so.
Well, we
I
are
think
now,
the way
of
you've
course.
been handling it has been inappropriate. So we are all gonna vote it at some point. I'm sure we're all gonna do red lines. So, certainly, I know everybody's working really hard. There's a lot of people that we all like on that group. Some you might not know as well, or vice versa. I'm really gonna trust them to go through that process and for us to receive a product and to review that. So, I think badgering it has not been helpful in the past week. I think we have beaten this topic to death. Let's move on, please.
I'd like to say one more thing.
Oh my word, of course you do.
I think it is our duty as public servants to make sure that any boards or committees under our supervision, which includes the ZAC, is going along step by step, following what the public interest is. And the public interest was made very clear in a comprehensive plan. And that guidance should be being followed. I think it is imperative, it is our duty to systematically and periodically check how's that going, and are the best interests of the people being represented, or which the comprehensive plan represents that, had the most public input of any document we've ever created. So what I don't want to see is a committee being basically co-opted by a few members.
In secret.
And if that is happening, we should be aware of it.
Tell me about the
And push
secret
a
part.
reset button.
Okay, rewind. Tell me about this thing secret part, please.
Well, they're violating the charter by not, the charter says that all ZAC documents shall be made public upon public request, and that is not being followed. So that's the secret part.
Public comment number 2. Terry, did you want to speak? I'll give you the opportunity since I cut you off earlier. It's up to you.
You were very truthful in what happened that day with the mailbox. 3 of us did go back and say something to you about Trustee Gaskin's behavior out here, which occurs on a regular basis. You know that I have had issues with harassment. And I am so glad that this is finally being addressed in public, because the treatment of some trustees has been horrific. Mentally exhausting, and sometimes physically exhausting.
I will swear that all I did was say, do you, quietly, not even to you, but to the deputy clerk, do you know why this letter was delivered 2 months late? She shook her head no. I left the building. That is not a cause for harassment in any stretch of the imagination, and I did nothing else but that. So if you say I did anything else but that, that is not true.
Okay, more public comment.
I'm not gonna argue with him. It's just not.
Thank you, Terry. Marilyn?
Marilyn Stevenson, 45 West High Street. I'm a member of the Zoning Advisory Committee. I'm just going to make a brief statement and then I have to leave. We have 3 more Zoning Advisory Committee meetings. February 6th and 20th, and March 6th, until our public zoning workshop, which is March 20th. During this time, we are very diligently reviewing the second draft of the zoning code. We've got 10 members, and they're doing the best they can with the volume of information that's been shared with the committee. We have until January 31st to actually enter our comments into the online Google Doc, and then we'll decide to continue our discussion, because we have not discussed all of the topics that we need to discuss. But we have many more that still need to come to light, and we still need our 10 ZAC members to weigh in on those. But I would just encourage village residents or interested partners to this process to continue to attend our meetings. We meet at 50 West High Street, the first and third Thursday of each month. Please just sit in on those meetings so you can hear these later deliberations. And then that public zoning workshop will be the 20th of March. I would encourage everyone to attend. We'll do another outreach round to people, individuals, organizations, groups, special interests, and encourage them to show up. Our consultant will actually do a brief presentation, but the majority of the meeting is actually question and answers about the code. And we have proposed to have the code available on the village website. We haven't worked out all the details yet on how to get the feedback. The consultant tells us it's the village's responsibility to receive the feedback, so we'll work with Jen to see if we can do that through a form, or whether that primary feedback will happen at the March 20th meeting. So I just encourage everyone to attend, and again, listen to our upcoming discussions, because we still have quite a bit to do. Parking is in that zoning code, specifically as it relates to parking spaces needed for employees that work in the village, and customers and things like that. So please take that into consideration. It's not a done deal yet just because the consultant suggested it, but that's one example of one of those topics we have not had time to talk about yet, but thank you.
Marilyn, just for the folks that aren't familiar, 7 o'clock, correct?
7 o'clock, 50 West High Street, the Cornell Cooperative Extension Auditorium, and the public is invited to sit there and observe, and then the chair always has some time on the agenda for the public to weigh in. And again, that zoning code will be someplace on the village website sooner rather than later. Thank you.
Liz?
Liz Cormos, 89 High. Yeah, my observations of that last meeting were that essentially the mayor dominated, checking out to see if I can find an AI program that actually analyzes who speaks how long. I think it'll show that certain members, and this is a village board, it's not the mayor's board. Each member is supposed to participate, has the right to participate equally, and contribute. Yes, the mayor presides over it, but it's not something where only he should be the one doing most of the talking. As far as the old business, there would, thank you, Marilyn, for covering what's happening on the ZAC committee. But two other items were on here: discrimination and harassment policy and the sidewalk law. And I think I'd like to hear from all the members, but particularly from Trustee Baskin and Trustee Raymond, their feelings about those two issues, and not have them cut off, as was done last meeting. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Keith's hands went up for about an hour.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we'll go Keith and Karen. How's that? Sorry.
That's right.
Keith Lewis, 38 East High Street, Ballston Spa. A wise village resident once said, "The village is a perfect place to live as long as you don't attend village meetings or you know what's going on." And tonight is a prime example of that sentiment. The gaslighting is literally insane, considering the facts. And the facts are, Bernadette, you lied to the board and you lied to the public about there being no laws that applied to the January 6th meeting. Frank, you lied. You lied to the board, you lied to the public. At both the January 2nd and the January 6th meeting, when you said no laws applied or had been ignored. And finally, the village attorney, Carla, you lied. You lied to the public and the board as well when you said nothing was done improper at either the January 6th or the January 2nd meeting. Laws that you ignored and misrepresented and hid were quoted to you tonight, and the three of you acted like they didn't exist. And you were reminded of the responsibilities you have not to vote on things you have a personal issue in. Facts outweigh feelings every time. And I'm so sorry, Frank, that your feelings were hurt by Ben or by Sean, but I cannot understand how this board can continue to employ Carla as our village attorney when it is clear that she does not work for the village, but exclusively for you, Frank. And I'll remind this board, she was willing to lie or misrepresent the law to support Frank, and so was Bernadette. That is the fact. Those are the facts. Now, the situation surrounding the organizational meeting illustrates how facts are disregarded. And Frank, you broke the law, then you backfilled your actions by repealing and replacing the law. You conspired with Bernadette and the attorney to do so, and then you made wildly creative statements to justify holding the organizational meeting under the guise of a special meeting. And then you claimed Bernadette was appointed early because the organizational meeting, she would need to be appointed early to have security if something happened to you. That's absurd. Deputy Mayor Bernadette did not turn into a pumpkin at midnight on December 31st. She was appointed, and she'll remain so until she's replaced. But you know that, Frank, and so does Bernadette, and of course, so does Carla. But that's what you'll do. You'll misrepresent things. You know, we get the government we deserve, and as long as people fail to connect the dots and accept lies and misrepresentations and beautiful photos on Facebook, personas, you may think you're the best we can get. However, as you go to sleep tonight, remember this. I may be the one of the few speaking up, but you have many eyes on you. And as long as you continue to lie in meetings, we will have the ability to share the truth.
Karen.
Hi, Karen Harris, 8892 Milton Ave. I think everyone here is great. We all have our differences, and I appreciate you guys all serving and volunteering. And I just wanted to say that before we start anything else, but I will say that Carla brought up the parking, and I think the village does need to go through the parking. They've redone roads, and they go this past summer. They've done a lot of different things, and a lot of the parking lines that were there haven't been replaced. So I think before we jump the gun right here in the downtown area, really need to take a look at it, because I know as a private parking lot person and having village, there's a lot of people parking in areas that they shouldn't be, and you ask people nicely and they will give you attitude or say nasty things to you when you ask them to park in the parking lot that's right next to them. And lines sometimes aren't painted clearly, so just before we make all these things, can we just make sure they're all painted and everything's good to go? And really like the DPW, I know they're overworked sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike Iacolucci.
Okay, I think now you can hear me. Mike Iacolucci, thank you. 3 Encore Drive. I just wanted to make an observation There were two motions voted on this evening. Motion 8B, 8C regarding the organizational meeting, and 8F regarding the rules of procedure. In each of those motions, the vote ended up 3-2. In each of those motions, the members of the board in the minority took the time and made the effort to explain what they thought about the motion and why. But I did not hear any explanation from the three members of the majority in those decisions as to what they thought and why. I like to think that members of the public are capable of hearing and thinking about and understanding different points of view, but that opportunity was not provided with respect to these motions, and I'm puzzled by that. I hope that does not prove to be the case continuing going forward. Thank you.
For response, Mike?
No.
Thank you.
I'm going.
Well, while you walk up to it, I'll get this out of the way. Mike, we spoke at length about those two last week, or 2 weeks ago, or at least one of them, with respect to local law number 1. We explained everything that was in play at that, so I'm not sure what else there was to beat in terms of this. Or that said, at the dead horse at this point on it, others felt the need to talk, that's fine, that's their prerogative. Go ahead.
June Morosi, 10 Old Glory Lane, Ballston Spa. I hope there's an AI program that can gauge how much attacking goes on during these 2-hour meetings. Because I can't believe what I witnessed tonight, and it wasn't the work of the people, trust me. It was attacking the mayor, Bernadette, and Carla. And Carla, on behalf of the grateful village, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that you have to put up with that crap. There are many municipalities around us that are much bigger than the village of Ballston Spa. They meet once a month. They meet and get their business done in well under 2 hours. I'd like an explanation as to why a village of 5,000 people has to have 2 meetings a month, and these meetings keep running over and over and over. I'll answer it for you. It's because instead of doing the people's business, people sit here and attack the entire time. So Ben, I'm gonna ask you again because I got shut down before. Did you scream F you at that meeting?
Continue.
I'll take that as a yes. Is that acceptable? Is that professional? Is that doing the business of the people that you were elected to do? Hardly. I want to make a suggestion, if I may be so bold. I don't think you need 2 meetings a month. If other huge municipalities can get it done in 1 meeting, why can't this village? Cut the crap out, cut the attacks out, do the work you're supposed to do, you'll get it done under 2 hours, and then we can all go our merry way. But this, enough is enough, because I'm gonna rewatch this and I'm gonna mark off the minutes that were spent on personal attacks during this meeting. It sucks. It sucks the life out of this village. And it serves no good purpose to the people. Thank you.
I think it might be Zlata or Foreman.
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you let them talk?
Yeah. Folks,
There it is, all right.
Big mouth.
okay, let's let the Phillips, whoever the Phillips representative is, speak. Go ahead. You have to unmute. Turn your mute off, whoever is the Phillips representative tonight. Space bar, perhaps? Or not? Don't worry about raising your hand, worry about the mute thing. Can you unmute? I don't think you can. It's the other way around.
All we can do is request them to unmute.
Hit the microphone button, Foreman or Zlata, hit the microphone button on your computer.
Is there anyone else?
No.
He says lower hand.
whatever you push.
They're arguing.
Oh, geez.
Whatever button you push it again.
I don't know, we didn't have to do so.
You don't have to, you just choose to.
Oh, my, we're in the world of Zoom at this point, so.
Right here.
I'm gonna trouble with this anyway.
Can you hear me?
There, you can say, talk.
Don't touch another thing, just talk.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's Zlata Phillips calling from 101 Hyde Boulevard. First
Go
of
ahead,
all, it's January. Mayor Rossi, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's, Lana.
January, Happy New Year, members of the board, all of you. And now I want to tell you my decision, my New Year's decision. I would like to see my 16-year-old grandchild to come and visit us during summertime. Okay, so it looks very simple, right? But I don't know where he can come because looking to the north, we have no neighbors. We have no neighbors. How come? There were neighbors in 2018, and when the stone wall was built in 2019, and anyway, that is a family that lives in a property to the north, 4-member family with 4 different names, but members of Hyde Boulevard 99 and 89. And those 2 members of 89 owned then property next to us. Okay, so when the wall was built and supervised very closely by 1 member of 89, I'm not mentioning names because there are 4 different names. So, and wall was finished, it was decided that we do not speak with each other. We ignored each other, totally ignored, but nobody was violent, okay? Well, then in 21, when a new neighbor, 99, came, and before he moved in 22 to his house, we have received a statement that read, all written, voicemail-based, and in-person contact made by any member of the Phillips household will be recorded and logged in accordance with New York Penal Law 250.05. Well, I have no idea what it meant, except I don't want to even see you, never mind that you say a word. Well,
20 seconds. 20 seconds.
that's all, yeah. Well, anyway, I need help. I would like to bring my grandson to 101. And we cannot do that because the 99 person walks on our wall, puts signs, very hateful graffitis, which I think it's a hate crime to talk about this. However,
Gotta
that's
close
all.
here down. So,
That's all. That's all.
Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you.
Thank you.
Okay. Never say I'm not consistent, okay? Yeah. What the next portion, we call this other business, and that include but not limited to board response. Is that without looking at my sheet, what we call this part? Okay.
So just briefly, thanks for distributing the discrimination harassment policy, but it did include old members who are no longer compliance officers. It included Christine Fitzpatrick and Sean Raymond. So it's very important that people, staff, and others know who the compliance officers are. So if you're not sending out a whole new policy, at least maybe send an email out with that update. So people know who the compliance officers are. As far as the sidewalk law, what I wanted to mention last time that I sort of did it as quickly as I could, is that I actually talked to, when we were writing the sidewalk law a year or so ago, I talked to NICOM about whether we could, whether the village could, with our current law, fix sidewalks that were broken by village trees, and their opinion at the time was that not as the law is written, because sidewalks can be damaged by any number of things, most of which have no responsibility due to the homeowner, but the homeowner's responsible. And so that was sort of the logic there. So we just want to make sure that we are able to do that within our legal framework. And I'm happy that if we can, because I've always been on the side of having the village repair sidewalks. The other point I just make is, obviously, if we are repairing the sidewalk for one property due to public trees, then it applies to all properties. So everyone should know that if they have a public tree and it's damaged the sidewalk, it's the village's responsibility. We will fix their sidewalk where it's damaged by a tree. So we just want to make sure that we're being equal to everybody. All right, I've already talked about the ZAC, so I won't go back to that. Thank you.
In regarding sidewalk law, we did draft something, and it was put in to law. There's a schedule that was created as well. The only thing it didn't have is it's still just elective. If people want to fix their sidewalks, then they can get reimbursement. But unfortunately, that's the same law we basically had, just with a different compensation amount, and we know where that got us.
Tune into the budget. No, I'm
In a
serious.
complete, basically,
tune into the budget.
20–30% of our sidewalks within the village are not ADA compliant. And
There's gonna be an allocation proposed.
interrupting.
I'm just letting you know that there's gonna be an allocation
Well, you can let
proposed.
me know after I'm done, right?
Well,
You can let me speak.
Conversations are nice too sometimes, Sean. I'm happy to-
But he's asking you to not talk, so.
Okay.
I'd just
He-
like
he
to
doesn't need
finish
your
my
help.
statement, and then you can reply. Civil discourse. So, I feel like, obviously, that what we have now isn't gonna get it done. And what I don't wanna happen is eventually, we have to take some sort of culpability if we don't act. And somebody gets hurt on what we've already identified as ADA non-compliant areas. We have a whole plan that identifies them. So, we need some sort of mandatory enforcement. It's not politically palatable, but we have to do something. And if we get funding, that's fantastic. But we're not, what are we gonna do after that? Because I'm sure there's easily there's more than $500,000 worth of sidewalk work here. So we have to have some sort of law to enforce repair or replacement of sidewalks. And we don't have that now.
Sorry, just writing you an apology. I'm sending to Shenandoah at the Gazette first off. Tune into the budget. That's all I'll tell you. And if we can stop hampering Carla with tirades over a week, I'm going to be trying to work with her to see some of the ideas that we can do legally and present them to you at some point in time. But when we are unfortunately badgering her about other things, it sort of takes away the time I have to get that stuff reviewed and discussed in that sense as the executive.
Well, all right, so here again, Sean and me earlier, but Sean now took the time to make significant suggestions on the sidewalk law. You could say thank you, and yes, we'll all look at that, and let's work on it, but you don't. you just ignore the contribution and you say, I'll do the budget and I'm working with Carla, and leave Carla alone and leave me alone and I'll take care of it. So, here's an opportunity for you to reach out and say, thank you, Sean. Let's work together on the sidewalk law. But we all know that is not how you work. That's not how you operate.
We've already discussed an approach to help alleviate pressures. One part of it was already done. There's a second part of it we had discussed already about loan pooling. And on top of that, assigning this to the road schedule. We've been working with Scott Kearns to get an earlier road schedule for paving purposes done in the spring so that we can go to the homeowners of those streets to say, your sidewalk is a level insert number here, whatever a bad sidewalk is, and you're gonna be obligated to do your sidewalk this year. But here we have some ways to offset the cost or alleviate the burden of the costs right off the bat. And that's the stuff that we were saying we're gonna work on so that we are, while managing, as we said, the ADA plan over 11 years, which is our street rotation schedule, getting the sidewalks on those streets done over those 11 years too, and financially allowing people to handle it without having prevailing wage become the biggest problem in the whole situation. Those are the multifaceted issues we face, and trying to make sure we have a law that could reflect it to offer up is one thing we're trying to work on. Carla has brought up before, we were talking about earlier today, the notion of having your top 5 things to work on for any given year. The focus stuff, so that she can focus her resources the right way. Nobody takes her up on that.
We have taken it, we have done, that was our idea, actually. We brought that forward a year or so ago. And that was a conversation that all of us had and agreed to.
So put in your top 5, it's still January.
Yeah, top 5, sidewalk law, sidewalk law, sidewalk law, sidewalk law, sidewalk law.
Still only comes one.
Yeah.
But
again,
what you just described, and it's not like I'm against it, but it's your personal plan. You created it by yourself and you just present it.
Well, instead of saying thank you or giving some credit toward it,
all right, no, that is something that you have contributed, and I appreciate that. But it's not as if you're asking for our opinion about that. And there's other things that that Sean has put into that law. You probably haven't read it yet.
yes, I did.
Okay, so there's other
The first time you sent it.
All right, good. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that. So there are other pieces to that beyond what you said.
It was sent on New Year's Day.
I know it was.
New Year's Day.
Yes.
All right, it's the 27th. So.
Can I get a motion that the vouchers be audited in the meeting be adjourned at 9:06 p.m.? Well, after we first hear from Mary. I'm sorry, Mary.
Mary's got something to say.
Freaking men. The men here.
That was my bad.
I just want to respond to Mike Iacolucci's question. My reason for not voting in line with repealing the rules and procedures is because last year the rules and procedures were adopted by, well, the motion was made by Ben, seconded by Ben. I don't know who seconded it actually, but there were 3 amendments to it, and the 3rd amendment was adding the words in the paragraph about 2 hours dating and up to 15 minutes for board response. So we did have that. It was supposed to be for the subject's board response to the comments, public comments, but they made the motion for that specific rules of procedures, and I feel that if you're not getting your way, you can't change the rules. I mean,
Well,
I'm sorry we ran out of time.
And I absolutely agree with you, Mary, and what Frank actually said in the last meeting was, if it isn't something that was in the public comment, you can't talk about it. And there was nothing in the law that said that. So he just made that up on the fly.
No, actually I didn't. It says board response.
well, that can be interpreted different ways, but also
Board can
when
respond.
That
Is
was
Mary
Mike-
done?
Mike
First off,
asked.
gentlemen?
know, really.
Are you?
Mike asked why, and I'm just responding to Mike's question.
So I remember that initial conversation, and I objected at the time to that piece of it, and I said, and I warned the community and this board that that can be abused. I was not happy with that piece of it, even if I voted for the rule of procedure as a whole. That 15-minute thing, that was a compromise that I had put into that, and I was thankful that that happened at least. But I was by no means happy that was put in as a potential tool to silence other trustees.
So I'm happy to make that motion.
That the vouchers be audited, the meeting be adjourned at now, 9:09
I
p.m.
didn't get an answer to my question.
Okay, hold on. Anybody
I
second?
second.
Thank you. Trustee Price Bush, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Have a good night. See you in February.
I still think they answered my question.